Introducing Golden State Republican Women First Vice President Gretchen Cox.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here with us tonight for our candidate Zoom series. Happy to have you all with us, and I'm excited about the candidate you're going to be meeting tonight. I do want to mention that President Janet is not able to be with us tonight. She sends her regrets, but she will be with us on the next one. So with that, we're going to get right into this. I want to start off by thanking our team, Sherry Gillis, our webmaster and tech person extraordinaire who makes this all possible, and Second Vice President Nancy Wofford in charge of political activities. So thank you both for your help on this event tonight. Before I introduce our guest, I just want to remind you all, please make sure if you have your phones near you to mute your phones and to mute yourselves while our guest is speaking tonight so we don't get interrupted by any background noise, okay? And I do want to encourage all of you, if you have questions for our speaker, to put them in the chat at the bottom of your screen. We will, at about 7:45, we will, or I'm sorry, yeah, 7:45, we will stop our presentation and go into a Q&A session. So please do enter your questions. And with that, I am going to get right into our introduction of our guest tonight. I'd like to welcome Supervisor Don Wagner. He is the chair of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, and he's been in elected office for quite a while now, so I'll give you a quick rundown of his background. And the reason we're having an Orange County Board of Supervisors member on with us tonight, for the rest of the people coming in from other parts of the state, is he is the Republican candidate for Secretary of State for the election next year. So I want to make sure you all get a chance to get to know him. Don Wagner serves, as I said, as the Orange County Board of Supervisors chair. He represents the 3rd District. That's parts of Anaheim Hills, Yorba Linda. I think you go down to Irvine.
I get
And
most Vervine. Yep. Down to Rancho
okay,
Santa Margarita.
okay. So he covers kind of a long swath of that part of Orange County. He's passionate about making life better for people across the area. With years of experience in public service, he's also a lawyer, and he has been in local leadership for, as I said, quite a long time. He's kind of famous for being very approachable and very effective in getting things done. He's focused on making neighborhoods safer, growing local business, and helping everyone in the community thrive. In his background, he was on the South County Community College District Board for 12 years. From 2010 to 2016, he was in our state assembly. 2016 to 2019, he served as the mayor of Irvine. And 2019 to currently, he's on the Orange County Board of Supervisors. One of his most important projects has been to get Orange County a military cemetery. So we were very thrilled that he was able to accomplish that. Don has been married for over 40 years and raised 3 children in Orange County Public Schools. He's an avid sports fan. I think I read UCLA, the
Yes, you
Dodgers, the
did.
Angels, and the Pittsburgh Steelers because you were born in Pittsburgh.
Right.
So we'll allow that. So with that, I'd like to welcome Supervisor and candidate for Secretary of State, Don Wagner. Welcome, Don.
Gretchen, thank you very much. And you've obviously done a deep dive into my background. I was born in Pittsburgh, so I still have a place in my heart for the Steelers. But indeed, my wife and I both went to UCLA. Our oldest daughter went to UCLA, so my heart is in the LA area with the UCLA Bruins. And my public career has been entirely here in Orange County in various elected offices. I'll touch on a few of them. I mean, you hit all of them, and I'll kind of dig into a little bit of them in a few minutes. But it is the case that I've been privileged to serve the people of Orange County at all different levels, other than the federal level, but certainly at the state, at the city, at the county level, in the special districts, dealing with our educational issues. And so I've seen what works in California government. There's not a lot of that. I've seen what doesn't work, and that is what takes up the lion's share of folks' time, especially up in the legislature. I did 6 years in the legislature as a Republican. It's enormously frustrating. It's only gotten worse. I've had the opportunity to travel to Sacramento to lobby on behalf of both Irvine city issues and then the county issues. And I will tell you that nobody up there is having any fun unless you're in leadership. If you're a Republican, nobody listens to you, and you get to vote no on everything and explain why everything the Democrats are doing is wrong. If you're a Democrat, you're up there forced to vote yes, but still have no authority other than what's directed from the top down, from the governor and the speaker and the president pro tem of the Senate. So right now, there's no question California is on the wrong track, and I've seen it from inside the belly of the beast up in Sacramento. I am currently running for the Secretary of State position, and I will tell you why. I think number one, there will be issues this cycle that are going to resonate with the voters that will land directly in the lap of the Secretary of State and the candidates running for Secretary of State, unlike we've seen in past elections in the last several years, where we as Republicans have been completely shut out of the constitutional offices. This year, I'm expecting it to be different. And I think the reason it'll be different is because we do have, on both sides of the aisle, a question about voter integrity. There simply is no doubt on either side of the aisle that the system is currently challenged, that there are just questions being raised by everybody on both sides of the aisle as to whether or not our system is free and fair, that there is no cheating going on. And you know that in particular because we see voter ID, the issue of voter ID. Hopefully, it's on the ballot in November of 26. And it right now polls 70% plus in favor of voter ID, which tells you that even the Democrats recognize that it is a good idea. It is an idea whose time has come. Indeed, it's an idea whose time has passed, because most states in the union have some sort of voter ID. And I'll talk about something we had happen in Orange County that maybe you've read about that makes it even more clear about how important voter ID is. That's an issue that will be in the wheelhouse of the Secretary of State. And my opponent, the incumbent Democrat, cannot get on the right side of it. Her party will not let her get on the right side of it. Moreover, she sued the city of Huntington Beach over Huntington Beach's efforts to have voter ID. And so at the end of the day, what we are going to see is an issue that is 70-30 in our favor, and the candidate for Secretary of State in the Democratic Party on the wrong side of it. We know the Democrats, when they don't get their way on initiatives, what do? They sue the state of California. They sue the proponents of the initiatives to overturn it, to stop it, to thwart the will of the people. I am pledging to the voters of California, if I'm their Secretary of State, I'm going to be the one suing to make sure things like voter ID get implemented. If the voters vote for it, I'm going to be suing to make sure that the other side can't and doesn't stop it. And that's something that, again, the other side of this debate, the other side of the aisle, cannot get on the right side of that with the vast majority of voters. Contrast that with what we see in, say, a race for the treasurer or the controller. Um, I don't see any issues out there, and maybe in Q&A you can tell me whether there are some that are going to make the voters say, oh, yes, we need a new treasurer from the other party. Oh, yes, we need a new controller from the other party. We do, but the issues are lining up for Secretary of State, unlike they are for any of the other constitutional offices. That's why I'm in the race. I am the only Republican that is in the race right now. I am working as hard as I possibly can to make sure that stays. I am going to be the only Republican in the race because I don't want to spend money in June that collectively we can all spend to take the fight to the Democrats in November. And towards that end, I have been endorsed by a number of folks from Governor Pete Wilson on down. The last two non-Democrat secretaries of state, Independent Bruce McPherson, Republican Bill Jones, have endorsed me, are co-chairs of my campaigns. I've got the Republican leadership in both the state Senate and the Assembly, who I worked with when I was up there in the state legislature. Those folks have endorsed me. I am picking up endorsements around the state and going to work this incredibly hard so that we have a head-to-head fight in November with an incumbent Secretary of State appointed to that position by Gavin Newsom, and we are going to be taking the fight to her without any distractions of other candidates. At least that's the way it looks like it's unfolding right now, and that I'm working to make sure that's the way that this campaign continues to roll out. The issues in the race are on our side. I do expect that the race for governor is unsettled as of right now. We don't know whether Alex Padilla is going to get in on the Democrat side. We don't know whether Rick Caruso is going to get in. And if he does, whether he's going to be a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. The governor's race is very unsettled right now. But the one thing we know about the governor's race is that Gavin Newsom will not be on the ballot. And remember when Kamala ran for president and she was asked that singularly important question, what would you do different than Joe Biden? And incredibly, of course, she had no answer to that. She said, I couldn't think of a thing. And we all watched her campaign just sort of die right there on the table in front of all of the women on The View and the rest of America. And so the Democrats will not be making that mistake this year. What are you going to do different than Gavin Newsom? Now, they're not going to tell you that they wouldn't have appointed the incumbent Secretary of State, but he's not going to be the most popular man on the Democrat side. They're going to be distancing themselves from Gavin Newsom, and I intend to hang my opponent right around his neck because he appointed her. I worked with her in the assembly. We were both in the assembly together. You may or may not know her name. I go to places. I was talking to the San Diego Lincoln Club, and I asked if they even knew the name of the Secretary of State. And only 3 people of that very plugged in organization knew the name of the Secretary of State. And she was an elected representative up out of the San Diego area. Her name is Shirley Weber. I served with her in the state legislature. And it is fair to say she was the hardest left of a very hard left legislature. And I think I stack up with the electorate currently very well because we are seeing successes. The Republicans got more votes in California this year than they have in quite a number of years. And the Democrats are overplaying their hand. So I am optimistic about this race. I do recognize it's going to be an enormous amount of hard work. I am ready for that work. To that end, I have been doing fundraising events and trips, as I mentioned, down to San Diego. I've been up in the Central Valley, in the Fresno area, up in the Paso Robles area. We've got events going on the books up in the San Francisco area, where Bruce McPherson is from, Santa Cruz, and he's one of my co-chairs. I've got family up in the foothills of the Sierras, and my old seatmate in the legislature, Beth Gaines, her husband Ted is running for supervisor up there. So we're partnering with folks around the state to get my name out there, to do the fundraising that is necessary, and to explain to Republican voters that this time, this race, this one is winnable. That's what it's all about. What I will tell you also, and I would hope that this resonates with everybody on this call, what is sucking the oxygen out of the political room right now is, of course, Proposition 50. I'm doing some work on getting the voter ID initiative qualified, but really I'm raising money, trying to raise awareness to defeat Proposition 50. I hope everybody on this call is doing likewise, because that comes up in a matter of weeks and is critically important to us and our future. The bottom line is Republicans get roughly 40% of the votes statewide. A Republican candidate can fall out of bed and get 40% of the vote. Getting that next 11 is what requires an enormous amount of work, but that's the baseline. And we do not have 40% of the seats, congressional seats in California. We have about 20% of them. And if Prop 50 passes, we will have about 10% of them. And so if you want to talk to me, Governor, about threats to democracy, just take a look at your own state. If you want to talk to me, Governor, about how Texas is redistricting and shouldn't, and we've got to match Texas, I will ask you, number one, why in the world, if Texas is doing something wrong, Governor, should we follow them in doing the same wrong thing? But more importantly, there are things Texas is doing that we should emulate, and it's not cheating on congressional districting. It's not redistricting in the middle of a decade. You want to talk to me about Texas? How about we start doing the things that are driving people out of California to Texas? Let's make it easier to start and grow a business here in California. Let's make it easier for our kids to find homes and raise families here in California. Let's make it easier to get good jobs and a good education here in California, rather than driving those folks out to Texas. You don't like what Texas is doing? Let's start doing some of the same things that have been proven to work. That's the answer on Prop 50. And that's the answer, in my mind, as to why we should not redistrict in the middle of the decade and further disenfranchise 40% of the voting public here in California. So those are some of the issues that I'm seeing in the Secretary of State's office and in the run I'm going to make for Secretary of State. I will add one other thing. Though we talk about elections in context with the Secretary of State's office, and rightly so, the largest department in the Secretary of State's office is the one that deals with businesses and business filings. The very first place anyone goes in the state of California, if they are going to try to start their business or keep that business running year after year, you got to deal with the California Secretary of State's office. It is nowhere near as efficient. It is nowhere near as business friendly. It is nowhere near as high tech that you get online and do what you need to do as it should be. And so what I am not going to lose sight of when I am Secretary of State is that business side of things, so that it is hard to start a business. It is hard to grow a business in California. There are enormous numbers of obstacles, but I'm going to tell the voters that the Secretary of State's office will not be one of those obstacles. Indeed, the Secretary of State's office will be the friend of business. And frankly, that's what I've tried to be throughout my entire career in public service. As a Republican, and I'm sure folks on this call have heard it many, many times. The question, oh well, you Republicans, you're all about business. You're just business. You're just big business. You're business, business, business. And so, no, wait a minute. There is a reason why I am proudly pro-business, and the reason is not because business itself is some existential good. It is good, but businesses at heart are human beings. They're people. They're people doing for themselves. There are people doing in ways that the government can't or the government shouldn't. And if they're doing for themselves, government can be smaller and can do less and can focus on the few things that government undeniably should do, public safety being the most obvious. And so, yes, I am proudly going to support business. As the Secretary of State, I am going to try to make that office poster child around this nation for pro-business policies, because business is the way human beings provide for themselves. And I am a full-throated supporter of such policies. And so as I talk about the Secretary of State's office, and as folks focus on it and they look at the election side, I want to make sure everybody realizes there is another component, an important component to what the Secretary of State does, and that is the pro-business side of it. So let me give you a little bit of background about myself and the work I've done in the county, some of which will translate into a statewide office. Some of it just is to show the breadth of experience that I've been privileged to accumulate over the course of my public career. Relevant to the Secretary of State's office, you may have read just the other day that we have a challenge, two of them, in fact, with our voter rolls. And I've had some problems with our registrar of voters. He has not been as forthcoming as I would like. We have been sued, we, Orange County, have been sued by the Department of Justice over our voting rolls. And in particular, there are 17 individuals who, by their own admission, are not here legally, by their own admission, are not entitled to vote in California. They are registered and they are able to vote in, or were registered and were able to vote in California. We get sued by the Department of Justice, and instead of cooperating, instead of saying, thank you, let's look at our roles and let's see what we can do to make them better, our registrar has said, nope, not gonna cooperate. I brought a motion to my board to direct the registrar to cooperate. And sadly, my board is 3-2 Democrats. And the Democrats, three of them, voted down my resolution. And so we are currently spending money fighting the Department of Justice, Federal Department of Justice, to protect 17 known registered illegal aliens. If that isn't enough to upset you, a week later, we find out that a dog was registered to vote and did vote in 2 elections. The vote was counted in one of them, in the governor's recall election. The vote was taught and not counted in the second one. But folks, we have a problem. There was a dog registered to vote in Orange County. I have no idea whether there was only one. I have no idea whether there were any cats. I have no idea whether there were, in other counties, other dogs registered, because our system is so lax that we don't have that information. The way it got discovered is that the dog's owner tried to register the dog, tried to vote for the dog in a federal election. In the first election, it was the governor's recall. That was a state election, only a state election, no federal issues. And there's no ID required. First time you vote in a federal election, you do need to show some sort of identification, a social security number. The dog didn't have it. Surprise, surprise. The vote was caught. The dog wasn't allowed the vote wasn't counted for the dog. And again, that tells me what? It tells me that we need voter identification in the state of California, because what are we looking at with Prop 50? Just like with the governor's race, a specific California only, no federal overlay election. Are there dogs? Honestly, probably not many, but one, of course, is too many. Are there folks who are not here legally, entitled to on the rolls? Undoubtedly. We've proven it here in Orange County. And so there are challenges with our electoral system that fall in the lap of the Secretary of State, but that we are trying to deal with here at the county level. And guess what happens? Even when I tried, remember, I told you what happened with the 17 illegal voters. And by the way, one of the things I've heard people say to me is, well, 17, that's not too many. That's not going to tip an election, is it? And the answer is yes. There were elections here in Orange County for county supervisor decided by less than 17 votes. There was a congressional race just last cycle up in the Bay Area. In the top two, the second and third place candidates dead even. So yes, won't make a difference often, but number one, it can. Number two, they're diluting your votes. Number three, they should not be on the ballot, and we should be rooting them out of the ballot. And you do that with, among other things, voter ID. So that's an issue that lays at the feet of the Secretary of State and, of course, here at the county. What happened? When I raised the issue, like I had about the 17 illegal alien voters, I raised the issue about the dog. My board, 3-2, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, voted down even discussing the problem. And so we've got problems at the county level that we need to change. And we're going to do that, hopefully in this state, hopefully in this county, certainly hopefully in the Secretary of State's office, by saying, thank you, Democrats. We've tried that. We don't think it's working. We're going to try something new. And that's the common sense approaches that the Republicans are trying on issues like voter integrity and so much more, on issues like public safety, on issues like homelessness. All of those issues that we've seen make our quality of life worse over the last 20 years with Democrats in this single party state. All of those things are coming home to roost. And I am optimistic voters are going to start seeing through that legacy of failure and saying there's one thing we can do to fix it, and that is change the party that is running things at the county levels, hopefully at the governor's office, God willing, and of course at the Secretary of State's office. And so that's some of the stuff I've been doing at the county level. In the introduction, Ms. Cox mentioned to you a couple of the things that we've accomplished here in the county. One is getting a veterans cemetery. We are the largest county, Orange, by population without a veterans cemetery in the nation. We are the 6th largest county in the nation, and we are the largest in California without a veterans cemetery. We have got one now that is in the process of final approvals. It's going to happen. And we are working with the Veterans Administration. That took an enormous amount of effort. It started when I was in the legislature back in 2013 to get it where it is today. And where it is today is unanimous support. Every one of the 34 cities in Orange County, every one of our congressional delegates, Republicans and Democrats, and I've been privileged to lead the charge on getting that done. Bipartisan effort. and with a lot of help from our friends in Congress, Republicans and Democrats in Congress, we have made some substantial progress on that. One of the other things I talk about, if you know Orange County at all, we had a very nice recreational facility called Irvine Lake, where just generations of folks learn to fish and learn to get out on the water and get out of city life and get a little of rural living, and it was closed for years. When I came into office, I made it a priority to get it open, and we were successful. And the reason I raised it, it was several years ago. The reason I raised it is number one, I still get people tell me at when I do town halls and Fourth of July parades and whatever, I'm hearing thanks from the public for doing it. But it ended up being a very complicated project because there were several local governments that had rights in the project. The county had rights and an interest in the project. The largest landowner and developer in Orange County, the Irvine Company, had rights in the project. And it was just it was a matter of herding cats in many ways to bring all of those folks together. But I was able to get it done, and I take some pride in that. And I raise it because again, it comes back to the question of all right, you want to go be a Republican Secretary of State in what will likely be an overwhelmingly Democrat controlled state. How in the world can you possibly be successful? And the answer is I have had an enormous amount of opportunity to put projects together and do things for the benefit of the public that required buy-in from either my colleagues in the legislature on the other side of the aisle or big important players here in my county. And those things are doable if you have the experience and you have the tenacity to do it, stick with it, and come to a deal. You can do those things for the benefit of the public, which I very much look forward to trying to put those skills and that experience to work for everybody in California in the Secretaries of State's office, despite what I recognize as an overwhelming disadvantage, being that we are so top heavy with Democrat electeds throughout the state, but certainly up in Sacramento. And so I guess, I mean, I've gone on for about half an hour or so. I don't know if you're as bored with me as I am with me, but um, that is, in a nutshell, the issues with respect to the Secretary of State's office and the campaign that I'm putting together for Secretary of State. I will tell you the response has been quite positive of late or throughout the campaign, really. Nobody has said to me, well, that's just the craziest, dumbest idea I've ever heard. Um, I do rightly get asked the question, okay, we're in California, how are you going to win it? But when I mention the issues that I started off with and how they are ripe for the Secretary of State's campaign and the Secretary of State's office, and the incumbent can't get on the right side of them, um, the response I end up getting has been quite positive, and so I am optimistic that we've got an opportunity this year to win a seat that maybe nobody is expecting. Certainly around the country, it will be news if Republicans are finally able to take a constitutional office in California. But I am not blind to the amount of work it's going to take, but I am also not blind to what I believe are genuine opportunities here in this cycle for this seat. My electoral history is such I've won a number of races that, quite frankly, folks didn't really think I was going to be able to win. The supervisor race that I ran the first time I was elected county supervisor, it was a special election with an enormously short turnaround. And I was the mayor of Irvine at the time, but I was running against five other Republicans and one Democrat, Loretta Sanchez, who had been in Congress, had just come off a race for United States Senate, had enormous name ID, and had been winning elections in Orange County since 1996, I believe it was when she first won an election. Maybe it was even 1994. And I beat her, and I beat all five of those Republicans. So the voters resonated with the common sense approach that I think I brought, the idea that we really could make county government work for them, that public safety mattered, that the things that we were seeing out of Sacramento, which was what Loretta Sanchez was promising, were not right for Orange County, and I ended up winning a race that I don't think anybody other than me and my campaign team at the time thought that I could win. Um, when I was mayor of Irvine, same thing. I really had some folks asking me, well, how in the world do you think you can be the mayor of Irvine and be successful as the mayor of Irvine? Because if you know Irvine, its demographics are very interesting. It is a majority minority city. Um, you can tell by Zoom, I'm an old white guy, but the majority of Irvine is predominantly Chinese, but other Asian ethnicities is the majority of Irvine. Well, how in the world can a guy like you win an election and represent the city? And I said, the answer is quite simple. Everyone who comes to Irvine comes for the same reason that my parents brought me from Pittsburgh. And it was they wanted to find a place where they could raise their kids in safety. They wanted to find a place where the schools were good. Back in the 60s, California schools were a lot better than they are now. The Irvine School District is nationally renowned. So folks were coming to Irvine for the same reasons that I came to California. It is for business opportunities. It is for public safety. It is for education. It is for our children. And that resonated. And so I ended up winning that seat in a city of almost 300,000 people. Mayor, when I was the running for the assembly, some of the same things happened. There were a couple of Republican candidates, and I kind of ran up the middle between the two of them, just sticking to the issues that mattered to the voters, and the surprise of a number of folks, including pretty much everybody up in Sacramento, I won. I tell you that because I know so many of you are from outside of the Orange County area and don't know a little bit about my record. To say I have been privileged to serve in a lot of offices and done it winning elections when perhaps the prevailing thought was this is going to go to the other side. This is going to go to somebody else. And I am, again, not unaware of the fact that this is going to be a tough race, and no one is expecting the Republican to win it. But those are precisely the kinds of races that I've been fortunate enough to win in the past and fully intend to do in this race. So with that, I really feel like I've gone on way too long. If anyone has any question, I am happy to take them, and I do thank everybody for their attention. And Gretchen, Sherry, and everybody, thank you for the invitation to be here and have a chance to talk with you guys.
We are going to do some question and answers now, and Nancy Wolford, our second vice president of political activities, is going to start those off.
Okay, well, good evening, Mr. Wagner, and all the guests on board. We have a couple right in our chat box here we'll start with. And one is from Judy Rees, and she's asking, you are a proponent of voter ID, and until that gets into place, are you supporting the program of Protect the Vote, the election integrity program developed by the RNC and passed down to the states?
Yes, I am supportive of that. Have been trying to get bits and pieces of that implemented at my own board, and am finding myself blocked by that 3-2 minority position that I find myself in. But absolutely, voter ID is a game changer, but we're not going to have it for the next election. Unfortunately, we've got to get it voted in. But yes, I am fully supportive.
Okay. We have one from Mary Kay Bachman. Will you be able to change or influence the removal of the egregious laws against business?
So, short answer to that is the Secretary of State cannot pass legislation. And all that I can do as Secretary of State, and I use all advisedly because I think there's a lot, is raise the issues, advocate, and take the fight to the Democrats in the legislature. I'll give you a couple of examples. Um, one is I had the opportunity to talk. I was up in Sacramento at an event not too terribly long ago. I was talking with Assembly Member Ali Masita, and she is the vice chairman of the Elections Committee in the Assembly. And she told me that she has not seen my opponent, um, uh, Shirley Weber, the current Secretary of State, has not seen her once testify in the elections committee about any election related issues. And now, first of all, Shirley would testify wrong, would be on the wrong side of the issues, but is not there. As the Secretary of State, I will be there. I will be there in the Elections Committee. I will be there in the Business and Professions Code Committee. I will be there in the Judiciary Committee, which handles most of the codes, because I was the vice chair of Judiciary for the entire 6 years I was up there. I will be there arguing for the bills that we need and arguing against the bills that we don't need or that are damaging to business. And they will have to pay attention, because talk about a mandate. Remember, if a Republican wins a congressional constitutional office in the state of California, it's national news. It doesn't happen without an enormous groundswell behind that candidate. I intend to be that candidate, and there's going to be an opportunity to take those voices that said, we don't want business as usual with the Democrats and Shirley Weber. We want you, Wagner, to carry the torch for us. I'm going to have the opportunity to do that. Um, I'm an old trial lawyer. I love going into those fights and making those arguments, testifying in front of those committees. And so it's going to require the right votes out of the legislature, but I am going to be carrying the flag for us and our pro-business point of view, and explaining to them why what they're doing is bad for business. It's bad for the people who depend upon business. It's bad for the state of California. And so that's a fight I'm going to relish. Um, and then we're going to have to make them either vote the right way or put up bad votes that we can use against them in the next election cycle.
Well, thank you. Gretchen?
Okay. Don, we have another question. Do you support mail-in ballots?
So, no. What I think they're asking, what I think the question is do I support the current regime where everybody gets a ballot mailed to them, and then they fill it out and return it either by mail or to Dropbox, etc. And the answer to that is absolutely no. Number one, that was a COVID thing. It was a dumb COVID thing, but it was COVID. We're past COVID now. We should go back to what, again, a majority of other states do. There is a place for mail-in ballots, obviously the military, but if you request one because you're going to be traveling, or maybe just physically you can't get to a polling place, there are reasons to have folks ask for absentee ballots. That's what they used to be called, and to let people mail them in. Wholesale mailing in of ballots is a recipe for fraud. And even if there isn't wholesale fraud, there is the perception of it that has got all of us, some Democrats, almost all Republicans, saying, I don't trust this system. I got to tell you guys, been doing this for a bunch of years. And over the course of the last couple of election cycles, when I've been out on the street, knocking on doors and talking to voters, either for myself or candidates that I'm supporting, when I'm walking precincts, every day, every single day, somebody will say to me, why should I vote? They're just going to steal it. They're just not going to count it. And my answer always is, I promise you the vote they don't count is the one you don't submit. But if folks have that sense, our democracy is in trouble and the wrong people are showing up at the polls, or not enough of the right people are showing up at the polls. And so we've got to get rid of that. And this wholesale, let's mail everybody a ballot is pernicious. And everybody, there's probably nobody on this call that has not gotten a ballot at their house for the person they bought the house from 10 years ago, or a child who's gone off to college or now has his or her own family somewhere else. We all get those. We all get those. And we've got to clean the rolls and we got to stop just flooding ourselves with ballots.
Okay. The next question is, can you confirm who owns the Dominion voting machines? I read the business was sold recently. I've heard that too. Do you have any information on that? And could that make a difference in future elections?
So I don't have anything more than what I've read in the papers, which is really the same thing, that it has been sold. I don't know the ins and outs of it. Could it make a difference in future elections? The answer is it could. It also might not, and it depends on who the machines were sold to, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I wish I had the information. I don't. I do know that if we can get rid of this wholesale mailing of ballots to everyone who has ever been registered, and their dog, literally, then we will make progress on our system. I don't really have enough information about the Dominion system and who it was sold to give you a good answer.
I'm going to ask a quick follow-up on that question. Do you know who would be the responsible agency, I guess, to vet whoever bought that company?
The answer to that is it would be the Secretary of State's office, because there are requirements for any of the machines that are being used, and the Secretary of State and the local registrars, because there are requirements for any of the machines that are being used that they have to pass certain basics to assure the FEC, Federal Elections Commission, that they are trustworthy. And so look to the Secretary of State's office and look to the individual registrars to make sure the whatever system is being used complies with the law. I will tell you, and in Orange County, we do not use the Dominion machines. And so I'm not particularly as familiar with them, other than what we've read in the paper about challenges in other states and now about this sale.
It's all yours, Nancy.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this one. What actions are you, as Secretary of State, able to take on without legislative approval on your own?
Well, the Secretary of State runs the office in terms of things like I mentioned. Let's get our business filing system more up to date. And I mean, we're in California. High tech is what we do. It's what we're known for. Please explain to me why we do not have a Secretary of State's office that is the highest tech in the nation, so that we can get our votes counted and counted quickly. Why are we the last state in the union to report our election result? It's because we at the Secretary of State's office are not up to speed technologically. And so I, as the secretary, would be able to streamline the office, would be able to direct monies into state-of-the-art voting uh, um, uh, election systems. Um, the registrar, the Secretary of State does not actually count the votes. The individual registrars do that in the counties, and so you've got to work with the counties, but would be directing the office again to be as high tech, as business friendly as possible on the business side, which is the largest side of the Secretary of State's office. But in terms of if unilaterally, I can change the elections code this way, that way, or the other way. The Secretary of State does not have that power. That is all within the power of the legislature. I will also tell you that one of the things that the Secretary of State can do is bring lawsuits for those who violate election laws, which I will do if there are violations of election laws. I also will, if the lawsuit against the city of Huntington Beach is not over by the time I am Secretary of State, I will pull the plug on that because the Secretary of State is a plaintiff. It's those sorts of things that can be done on the administrative side. Sadly, much of what we see that troubles me, and I think troubles most people on this call, like all the ballots that we have, like the fact that we've got a cure period that runs 30 days, those sorts of things, those are baked into legislation. And it'll require either the state legislature or the people going over the head of the state legislature, which is a tough and expensive proposition.
Thank you. This is a kind of a statement with a question at the end. It says, "Good evening. Currently, the position of county superintendent of schools requires an administrative credential, which is more than required for state superintendent of public instruction. This means that parents cannot run for county superintendent of schools. Do you think that the requirement for administrative credential should be eliminated?"
So I will tell you that is entirely outside of the purview of either the Secretary of State or a county supervisor. We have no controls over the schools, and it's not a business or an elections question. And so what you are getting here is merely Don Wagner's position, not a county government official and not a candidate for Secretary of State. And yes, you should do away with it. Credentialing in education is a scam. I was a community college trustee, as I mentioned, for 12 years. Some of the biggest pitched battles we had were with the teachers union, the professors union, but it was an offshoot of the California Teachers Association. And yes, I think those credentialing requirements are a scam. I mean, they're a way to get only the cool kids playing. And a parent, somebody who wants to come shake up the system, somebody who says this isn't working, until they've got that credential and done all of the kissing of the rings that are necessary, you can't fight it. And so I have a real problem with that personally as a citizen. I'm not going to tell you as a county official because we don't deal with the schools, or as a Secretary of State that I'm going to be able to change that. But yeah, it's pernicious.
Okay, Gretchen.
Okay, this is a little bit more of a general question. Are you seeing, okay, one of my fervent hopes is that California will flip the way our country flipped for Donald Trump. And given all of Gavin Newsom's obsession with Donald Trump and how all he talks about anymore is how awful Trump is and all of that, and he seems to have forgotten that he's governor of this state. My hope is that people will be getting sick and tired, not only sick and tired of Gavin, but but sick and tired of what's happened, what the Democrats have done to this state, while nobody seems to be at the helm. So are you seeing anything that leads you to believe that we may be in for at least some positive results in this midterm election, the way we were at the national level?
I am cautiously optimistic that we will see some changes. I mean, I wouldn't be running for Secretary of State for a statewide position if I didn't think there was a chance folks are going to finally start waking up and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't working. We've got to try the other side." There you are seeing some signs. Donald Trump did so much better in California in 2024 than he did either in 2020 or 2016. That is a positive sign. I think that you've gotten to the point where the Democrats so overplayed their hand. I say I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or how liberal you are. If they're coming for your children, you're not having it. And increasingly, it's hard for folks on the other side to deny they're coming for our children. And so, yes, I think we are in for a correction. How big it will be, how many Democrats it sweeps out of office and Republicans it sweeps into office, I don't know. Nobody knows. But I've got to believe that, and that's why I stay in this business. The state is worth saving, and we are really watching a wonderful state go down the tubes because of misrule. And I'm hopeful the public will at some point recognize it. I will say, when I got elected to the legislature in 2016, in 2010, before I even got sworn in, all of the new Republicans, we had a caucus dinner with the party leadership at the time, and we sat around the table talking about exactly this, about how California was on the wrong track, and we were raring to go and feeling good about ourselves, and we were going to climb out of the minority, and we weren't, maybe by the time we were all termed out 6 years later, going to be the majority party, but we were going to be much closer than we were, and we lost in every cycle. And so I don't know what it's going to take for the public to realize this isn't working. But I think with what we saw with Donald Trump, I think with what we see with Gavin Newsom so overplaying his hand, and just go back to COVID, and the guy made you wear a mask and me wear a mask, and he goes to the French Laundry with the leadership of the California Medical Association at that dinner, not wearing. Gosh, I hope the public wakes up.
I have a really quick ending question here since we're right
Okay.
on the nose here. How can we help you win?
Best question of the night, for which I thank you. I will say, first of all, to the extent that you have an opportunity to talk, and all of you are politically active, to your friends and your neighbors. Folks are going to listen to you out in the community because they know that you're plugged in. Let them know there is a Republican candidate for Secretary of State who has the backing of serious people, former secretaries of state, former Republican governor, the local business community, many other folks. Let them know there is help on the way. And because I'm going to need my name ID is pretty good in Orange County. It is not throughout the rest of the state. And so I'm going to need folks to talk about the fact that we have a real chance with this race, with this incumbent and me, to win this one. Let people know that. I will also tell you, money, you got to run in California. It is an enormously expensive proposition. Any little bit genuinely does help. And then I am always looking for folks who are willing to host or help host or set up or put me in touch with people who will host or set up events throughout the state. I've got to go throughout the state to raise my name ID. I've got to go throughout the state to raise money. And I've got to go throughout the state to listen to the voters who are saying, here's what matters to us in our communities, and here's how you can help. And I'm not afraid to go anywhere in this state. I've loved the state, served it for many years, and so tell all your friends, help financially, and if you can help me set up some events around this state, I'll take this message out there and take the fight to Shirley. Take the fight to Shirley Weber.
Okay, Gretchen, you.
I was going to ask Gretchen, did you put up his website?
I did. I put it up early on in the conversation. So if you guys want to go into your chat and scroll up towards the top, I did list his website. We do have a request. Some people up in Lake Arrowhead, Dawn, want you to come up and talk to them at the Republican Women's Club up there. So we'll pass that. I'll pass that on to Tara. And we thank you so much for your time tonight. All of a sudden, stuff's popping in. So sorry, everybody, we really have to go. But what would you like to give us?
Wagner for California.com. Real simple. Thank all of you, and let's, over the next 4 weeks, recognize Prop 50 needs to be defeated. Let's get out there and defeat it, and then we'll turn our attention to voter ID and get that on the ballot. And those two things, win on Prop 450 and voter ID, are game changers for Republicans in California. We'll make this state golden again.
Thank you so much, Dawn. We really appreciate your time tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Honor and a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, thank you for being with us tonight. We will be sending out information on our next Zoom soon. We're working on a couple of different speakers. So as soon as we get those confirmed, we will be sending it out in email. So keep your eyes on your emails, and thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.